On October 14th, 2023, the moon threw shade at the Earth. It blocked the sun, causing a rare ring of fire annular solar eclipse. The shadow traced a path over the southwest US, passing directly over Albuquerque, New Mexico. It just so happened that's where Balloon Fiesta, the world's biggest hot air balloon festival, was being held. Back when I was in 6th grade, I made a bucket list, all the things I wanted to see and do before I die. The more I check off, the more I find myself adding to it. See the hot air balloons in New Mexico and see a ring of fire eclipse were both on there. Booking tickets was a no-brainer.
If you like this video and want to see more like it, click on the like button. It really helps us out a lot. And of course, if you are not subscribed to the channel, subscribe. It's totally free. And click on that notification bell, that way you always know whenever we drop a new video or whenever we go live.
I flew down to New Mexico, where I spent 2 days in Santa Fe. Then it was time to take the Rail Runner train to Albuquerque, where I'd be meeting the rest of the gang. First things first, I had to snag the rental car.
All right, we got a Chevy Volt, and this is my first time driving an electric car, and gosh, it's silent.
Then I picked up Jack and Tess at the airport. Andrew would meet us the next day. After a quick lunch, we had some time to kill. So we toured an aquarium and a garden. The garden didn't really have plants. I kid you not, there were hardly any plants. And the aquarium didn't have the otters we were promised. And Jack, who is behind the camera and who's editing right now, well, he almost cried.
Otters, nowhere to be found. There's nothing. It's sad grass. A few rocks.
Batting a 0, we went to a random ceramics store. And I have to say, big score. I also got myself a small lizard named Lenny. Then it was time to sleep. We had a very early morning ahead. My alarm clock went off at 1:18 a.m. I had to charge Bolt, which took a lot longer than I thought.
It's now 1:38 a.m. I slept for 2.5 hours. Everybody else is still sleeping, and I'm in some Walmart parking lot trying to charge our Chevy Volt. It's cool. I'd rather be in bed.
Now personally, I like waking up early. I do all the time for work. But Jack, Tess, and Andrew didn't seem quite so happy to be awake like 3 hours before sunrise. But we had to be first in line at the media tent. After all, we had a chance of scoring a flight on board a hot air balloon. It turns out, however, that none of the tents were open until 5. And it was cold.
No.
Well, it's 3:47 a.m. The media tent isn't open yet. You see all these tents behind here? Nobody will let us in. Current temperature here is like 40 degrees, and things are freezing that shouldn't be frozen.
We wandered around shivering for a while. I was cold and, for the first time since June, cranky. And y'all know me, I am never cranky. Just then, however, our prayers were answered.
Never gonna take it off.
No, we can't use it.
You can blur that, right?
You can try. That's how to do it right there.
I feel like a snuffleupagus.
He looks so cute. Did you want it back or do it next year? Alrighty, well, you guys are all set.
We warmed up pretty quickly after that. But I was still stressed. It was Eclipse Day, and I knew we'd be dodging some cirrus clouds aloft.
So it's 4:34 right now. The cirrus is overhead, but we're seeing stars, which is a good sign. So as long as it stays thin enough, I think we'll see the show.
By 5 a.m., we were inside the media tent, gobbling down Krispy Kreme donuts and breakfast tacos. An hour later, the morning light show. 500 drones arranged to show scenes depicting the history of Balloon Fiesta. Now, 2023 marked the 51st annual Balloon Fiesta, and the biggest one yet. 1.2 million spectators came out during the 9-day event. The tradition began in 1972 with just 13 balloons. Nowadays, over 500 balloons take to the skies every morning during a mass ascension around sunrise. We were staring at the skies when suddenly our name was called. We'd been chosen for a flight. It was time to meet our pilot, Gary. Pilots at Balloon Fiesta take advantage of something called the Albuquerque Box. During the cold, dry mornings in the fall, cool, dense air sinks. It slides down the Rio Grande Valley, giving a light northerly wind at the surface. High aloft, however, winds blow out of the south.
So essentially, there's this height at which the wind stops blowing one way and you start blowing the other way.
Right.
But in between, is there like a sweet spot where it's the most?
Yeah, there's so in between, the atmosphere always wants to achieve equilibrium, right? Okay. So, let's say you have winds going south at this altitude, and they're going north at this altitude. Well, right where they meet was called the boundary layer, and that's usually where it slows down because, again, to be equilibrium, right? And it could be turning, 90 degrees this way and 90 degrees that, so there's a turn there. And it depends on the day, whether it's a turn to the left or right. The other thing that's going to happen is once that sun comes up, that starts mixing the atmosphere. And when it does that, it starts disintegrating those boundary layers, the wind layer. And so it kind of evens out a little bit. And usually at 10 o'clock here, that calm. Today, in our briefing, they said it's going to take a while for that to break down. And it's not as defined as it usually is. They also forecast that the wind is going to be, there's going to be a direction going to the other northwest or west. But if you look at these balloons going up, they're going probably 10, 12 knots an hour.
Wow.
Okay. And then up higher, you see that they're stopped.
Yep.
And then way up high, you see they're going that way. So keep in mind that even though this is a large launch field, we all took off from the same spot.
Yes.
Okay? So it's going to, when you look at different balloons, you say, okay, how come they're doing that at that altitude? That's the only way we can steer. We can go up and down, or we look at different wind patterns and directions at different altitudes. And it's going to change as the day goes up. So you're kind of looking at other balloons and say, okay, now that balloon up there is going that way. I think I'll go up there.
If the pilots want, they can ascend and descend, surfing the winds back and forth to basically end up where they started. While we prepared for the launch, Gary told us all about his history as a balloon pilot.
So how many years have you been doing this? And obviously,
I started in 2000.
Oh, very cool.
When in 2000, they wanted 1,000 balloons in 2000. After a couple of years, they said, that's really too many. So now it's kind of like in the 550 to 600 balloon range. This, all the years I've been coming here, this is the most people I've seen on the field. Usually the first Saturday, there's a lot of people on the field. This is what crowd I mean.
There were 2 rounds of balloon launches. The first wave ascended without incident, but then the winds began stirring.
There's 2 instruments on the field. They're called wind profilers.
Yep.
I don't know if you're familiar with those.
Of course.
Okay, so there's one on the south end of the field. There's one on the north end of the field. So if you look at this is the height above AGL, above ground level, 131 feet. The speed is 11 knots, which is about 13 miles an hour.
Sweet spots.
And then this is the direction. Don't worry about the direction. This is what you look at. So at about 260 feet, it's going 15 knots. That's like 18 miles an hour. And you notice they changed from black to orange.
Yep.
This means, do you really want to be doing that? But you could see how when you go up above there and see how this is the boundary layer right there. See how the speed dropped down? And see the direction, how it's changed?
Yeah.
Going from 030 to like 245. That's the boundary layer. But, and then it picks up again. So there's like this little sandwich here that is kind of slow. And then it picks up again. Problem is, You gotta land. Yeah. So that's a win, and that's constantly updated. This is at 1420 UTC, so that's like 5 minutes away.
After a while, and to our pretty great dismay, Gary made the call. It was a no-go, and I'm still cranky.
So it's unless it really calms down, we're probably not going to fly. You can watch some of these balloons; they're putting it down. And this guy's putting it down. Two back there are putting it down. I think you watch these two on the left here. Eventually, they're going to. I think the second one in already has put it down. This Doug, my friend here, the Wins Big Flies, he's from here. He knows better. So he's probably going to put that down.
The current time was 9 a.m., and despite the winds, we had bright skies overhead. We decided to make a run for it.
Nice. To the Batmobile!
Blasting to the outskirts of Albuquerque to get a better view of the eclipse.
I love rental cars.
After driving aimlessly, we settled on a random patch of desert, wide open views. Unlike during total solar eclipses, during a ring of fire eclipse, you have to keep your glasses on and the landscape doesn't go dark. That's because the moon was near apogee, or the farthest point in its orbit about Earth. That's why it didn't appear large enough in our skies to totally block the sun.
You don't really notice how much darker the landscape's getting until like 5 minutes before annularity, when the sun is really being blocked by the moon and you only have like 10-15% left. That's when things get weird.
We got 5 minutes left to go, and in addition to being in the sky, little mini eclipses in the gaps in the shadows of the trees.
All right, we got like 90 seconds left. The landscape is getting darker, it's ominous, it's eerie, the shadows are sharper, everything's gloomy. But check this out. We have like nothing left to go. We got this tiny crescent, and in just a second, we'll have the full ring of fire here in New Mexico.
All right, guys, this is so weird. We got the full ring of fire here in New Mexico, and it's the weirdest thing. You look, the whole landscape's bizarre, but there's something so, the landscape's trippy. It's really trippy. But wow, we got like 4 minutes left of annularity, and this is unbelievable. The moon a little too far away to fully obscure the sun, but goodness gracious, this is something that I've never seen before. Wow, to stand in the shadow of the moon
Is something otherworldly.
We could even see Bailey's beads, the last rays of sunlight shining through the valleys of the moon.
All right, guys, we just had full annularity here. It lasted 4 minutes, 48 seconds. It was incredible. I've seen 2 total solar eclipses. Annularity had a different flavor. And for everybody else in the country who can still see this, I have goosebumps still. This was unbelievable. And yeah, wow, you gotta check it out.
But then, after a long day, it was time to go back to the hotel, throw on my onesie, and go to sleep. In the meantime, the next big eclipse to sweep across the nation is Monday, April 8th, 2024. That one will be a total eclipse, and you'd better believe I'll be there. Until the next adventure, gang, I'm meteorologist Matthew Cappucci.
Follow MyRadar on social media: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Download MyRadar on iOS, Android, Amazon Alexa, Xbox, and Windows.